Welcome back to another video, and we are back in the inventory, and today we are going to be optimizing some of the things. Now, if you have followed this series throughout, well, these 40 plus some videos, then well, congratulations to you. You have gone a long way, and probably and hopefully throughout this journey you have learned quite a lot of things about how inventories are made and at least understand the core idea behind this. Now, this inventory series is by no means perfect when it comes to actually getting used in a finished and developed game and to be shipped, because there essentially are a couple of inventories combined within one. As you know, the backpack and player slots used to work different from one another. Then we basically made them work pretty much the same way. Same goes for shop is a little bit different, and a lot of things are a little bit different. And also we are using multiple widgets. For example, for the item slots, we have the item data, equipment slot, and we have the player slots. And there's a lot of things like that that could be optimized and made into one. Eventually we are going to do this. There are going to be a couple of videos where we now are going to optimize this whole thing and try to put it together to make this a little bit easier to work with. Now, what I'm going to do today is optimize one of the things, which is if we open up our UI inventory and go to the event graph. Under the event give widget variables, we have a switch, which basically tells which part of the inventory widget we are actually accessing, which things we need to display, like our inventory, player slot, the backpack, player slots, equipment, shop, chest, crafting bench, and the storage, which is like the ender chest from Minecraft. And to determine this position, we are using a string. Now, obviously I could have done this at the beginning of the series. I could have used an enum, but I didn't, and that is because, well, one of the reasons is now we can come back to these things and redo them, and that way your knowledge of this whole thing will be a little bit better, because you will repeat some of the things, which is basically what you did back in school. You did multiple times pretty much the same tests, the same mathematical equations, and basically came up with how to solve them when it comes to a different location, essentially. And that's what we are going to do today. And by this point you would probably have made a couple of grammatic mistakes with these, and we're going to fix those so that you would never have to make the grammar mistakes. But well, obviously there's still possibility for human error, because we are going to now have a drop down and you will have to select the correct drop down option. Now, to do so, what we need to first do is remember all of these. And let's go ahead, and in my inventory folder I'm going to create ourselves a new enumeration, which is essentially going to hold all of these switch values. So I'm going to call this item location, and let's open this up. Now I'm going to have two windows open so that I can see both of these, so it's a little bit easier for me to write those down so that I don't miss any of these over here. So let's get started. So the first thing, inventory, or better, let's call this backpack, so that's not maybe as confusing. The next one is the player, so the player slots. Then we have the equipment, we have a shop, we have a chest, then we have a crafting, and we have the storage. There we go. So we can save that, and now we can close it all off. Now, with this being done, what I want to do is actually replace this guy with the enumeration that we just created. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and create ourselves a new variable, and I'm going to call this simply position. So we have this position, and now we're going to have the position, or let's maybe call this source. Let's call this source because we did call this source later down the road. So I'm going to change the variable's type now to the enumerator that we just created. So the item location, item location. Change the variable type. That's the wrong variable. Whoops. Wasn't supposed to do that. This is the variable. So location, item location. There we go. Now, what we want to do over here is go ahead and grab that. We want to get this. So I'm not going to delete anything as of right now, but I am going to do a switch on string it's going to look pretty much the same thing as this one over here, and I'm going to connect it the same way as we have the other ones. So the backpack, the player, and the equipment goes over here. Then we have the shop to the valid, chest to the valid, crafting to the valid, and storage down below over here. There we go. So we're going to leave that for now. And what I'm also going to do is grab this source and get it and place next to all the disposition variables, because, well, we are going to need to replace that. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do the same thing over here. And let's have a look where else we have it. At the very beginning, we are setting this up. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to set this value at the beginning. So the next step would be to change and pass along the same information inside of the give widget variables interface function. So just double click that and it's instantly going to open it up for you, and just add ourselves a new variable, and let's call this source, and this is the item location type, like so. And now back in our UI inventory, we should have this pin. So now we can connect that. There we go. So that's good. Let's go a step backwards to where we actually launch this give widget variables, and that is inside of our third-person character, not the game mode, the character itself. And over here we have the widget position. So I'm going to create again a new variable, and I'm going to call this active widget. Let's call this active widget. And let's make this into the item location variable, like so. There we go. Now, again, we have a function called refresh inventory widget. So we're going to go ahead, add the variable for that as well, because as you can see, it is using the string position, and we're going to use this one. So we're going to call this, let's call this source, and the item location enumerator. There we go. Now we need to pass that along the same way. So basically follow, as you can see, the position as the pink route goes. We need to pass along the newly created variable as well. So let's pass that along to the create widget, and let's call this again source. So item location, and just plug that in exactly the same way as we did with the string value. There we go. Now by doing so, in every single location where we have the create widget, we will now have this drop down menu. So we got to select the same thing as we had in the position. So over here, I called it previously inventory, now it's going to be called backpack. So let's go ahead, select the backpack over there, and we are good with that. Now we got to make sure that we pass along the value to give widget variables. So that is inside of our create widget function. And if we look over here, there it is. So just go ahead and pass that along, or just simply right click and get the source, like so, because this is going to return this value right here. So we can plug that in. Good. So that's ready to go. Now we also want to go ahead and set it up inside of our character as well, just like we previously did with the widget position. So let's grab the active widget, let's set that, and let's set this value as get the source. There we go. Now what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to move this out. I'm going to leave it connected just in case if something goes wrong. So it is still connected, but for now I'm going to move it out of the way, and later on I'm going to delete it completely. So we're good with this one as well. Now let's go ahead and let's open up our inventory panels and all the other panels that we might have. So we have the equipment panel. Let's open those up from UI inventory. That might be a little bit more reasonable to go step by step. So we have the give widget variable, and the first one is the inventory panel, which has the position. So we want to click the magnifying glass to find it, open it up, go to the graph, and as you can see we have the position variable, and let's add a new one, and let's call it source, and this is the item location variable, like so. So now let's have a look. We can right click this and we can find reference, we can double click the reference, and there we go. So we are using one over there, one over here, and we have this position right here as well. So we're going to need to replace all of those. Now let's start off with this one. Let's go ahead, let's pass along the source. So let's get that, and then we can go ahead, plug that in, and it is going to convert from an enumerator to a string. Now you cannot make this directly into the text, so what you want to do is, if you have deleted all this, then you can drag from the enumerator and just to oh, it goes to text as well. Okay, so you need to make it to text instead of plugging it in directly. I know it goes to the string as well, but apparently it works like this as well, because with string you can just drag it into the string and it creates this for you automatically. This one apparently doesn't, but we are good with this. Now let's hit play real quick for a sec and let's have a look what we just did. So it's loading. So now if we pick up a backpack, press I, you can see it says 0 because, well, we never passed that value along, but now it should say 0. And I think it converts the byte value. That's actually not what we want, to text. Oh yeah, it converts byte. So I was right about this. We want to go to string, enum to string, and then that string can go into the text, because it shouldn't display 0, because that is the ID essentially that we are using. So I'm going to use just one to make this go a little quicker. And there we go. So now it's a backpack, and if we look at the chest, it's going to be backpack for all the other things that are using the inventory panel. That's good. That's step 1. That is backpack because, well, we never passed that value along really. So now we can go ahead, select the source variable, make it instance editable and exposed on spawn, and that means that now it is going to be available in the UI inventory. So if we right click the inventory panel, go ahead and refresh the node, now we have that variable available as well. So let's go ahead and let's set it up. So in this case, since that is the inventory, it's going to stay as a backpack. So we are good with that. Let's proceed down the road. We have another one over here which we want to right click and refresh, which is the inventory panel, and we can plug in the source over here. We have another inventory panel, right click, refresh, plug that in, and I believe that should be it for now. Those are all of those. Let's see. So that is good. Now let's go ahead and let's actually reconnect this, and let's remove this for good. We don't need that. Let's go. So now the thing is that, well, some of the things might not work anymore because, well, it depends on some of the aspects. So you might see a lot of issues right here, that some things could not perhaps work, but some of them still will. So be careful with that. So let's work with the next one. So apparently equipment panel doesn't have it. So let's go directly to the equipment slot instead, which has the tag value, and we want to pass along the enumerator. So inside of our drag drop item operation, we want to open that one up. We want to create this variable as well. So we want to go ahead and call this a source, and this is the item location enumerator, instance editable and exposed on spawn. Compile and save this back in the equipment slot. On drag detected, we can now right click, refresh, and we have the source available. Now for this one, I'm not going to create a variable because we are using the equipment, so I'm just going to click on the equipment selection right here. There we go. Now we have a on drop event as well, which now we can go ahead and change. But before we do that, we need to pass along again those variables, because here you can see we are using the strings again. So that means that in our amount selection, we want to open the amount selection and we want to add now 2 variables. So the first one is, again, we have the, I'm going to call this e source because we already have a source variable, and this is going to be the item location. And we are also going to have a e direction. And I'm going to make both of these instance editable and exposed on spawn so that we can provide these from the outside. So once we have done that, that means that back in our equipment slot on drop, we can just go ahead, file, and refresh all. So it refreshes both of these nodes, and you will see that now we have those values available. So again, for the direction, just like over here, we have typed in equipment. Let's go ahead and let's select the equipment for both of these. But for the source, we want to drag from our item drag drop operation, and we want to get the source like so, and then we can plug that into both of the sources like so. There we go. So another location done. Now let's go ahead, let's open up our next widget. So inside of our amount selection, we can now replace all of those. So we can drag in the E source, we can do a switch, and we can go ahead and reconnect the pins that we have from this one. So I'm going to hold Control and connect all of these like so. That's an interesting shop. Oh yeah, shop goes directly to there. Let's have the equipment, chest, crafting, and storage. So the shop one was the only one that skips because it needs to ask the question yes or no. So we're going to remove that and bring this into the other one's place. Now I've helped this out for a couple of other people. Now if you have multiple locations where you want to ask the question yes or no to confirm the moving of the item, then what you want to do is actually perhaps make another switch, because here you could do multiple these conditions, but instead we can also go ahead and use a switch. So I'm gonna reconnect all of these by holding Control. So over here, and so in this situation, if we want to skip the question, we want to skip it from the backpack, player, equipment, chest, crafting, and storage, but we want to ask yes or no when it is going to or from the shop. So like so. And then we can delete these and connect our E direction instead. So now if you have some kind of things that need to be that you wanted to ask yes or no to confirm the moving of the item, just go ahead and plug that into the bottom one, just like the shop. So everything that goes in the bottom one does ask the question. As you can see over here, this one is skipping the question. So now we need to pass along the new enumerators to the confirm by as well. So I'm going to open that one up. And again, just like before, two new variables, eSource, which is the item location, instance editable, exposed on spawn. I'm going to select this, Control W, and rename this to E direction so that it keeps its instance editable and exposed on spawn. Once we've done that, again, one step back to the amount selection, click File, refresh all nodes, and we have those inputs available over here. So let's go ahead, let's connect those. So we have the eSource and E direction. Plug both of them in, source, direction, and we have another one over here, source and the direction. Good. So we are good with this one as well. So let's see, all of these have been changed. Now back in our confirm by, we have a couple of other locations where we still need to do this, and there's actually not that many. So let's start off with the refresh widget function event that we have over here. So from the player, we want to get the active widget enumerator and pass that along just like we did for the position. So everything is exactly the same, except for now we are using the enumerators. So again, we have another source over here, which we can do a switch on and connect the shop, chest, crafting, storage, player, this is the player, inventory to the backpack, equipment to the equipment. There we go. Replace it over here, and I'm going to delete the old one. So that's pretty much it. Now we need the same things in our move item. So we can do some adjustments over here as well. So this one requires to have two new inputs. So the first input again is the E source, and we have the E direction. There we go. So when I made this, I didn't know that you can just right click and get E source, so you can get the functions passed along variables like so. So I made the local variables. I wasn't aware that you can do something like this. Since I know now, I'm not gonna promote those to the variables like I did with the other ones. So again, let's do the same thing. We can just right click, get E direction, and do a switch on this one, since we are doing a string switch from the direction. and again plug in things the same way as we did before. So we have the storage, crafting, chest, shop, equipment, player, and the backpack. Boom. So now we can delete this and move this in its place. We can now delete that extra return node, which is unnecessary. Move these things back. And we're gonna eventually come back to this piece right here as well. We're gonna optimize this thing even more. So we're gonna have less routing over here. Now let's go ahead and change the second switch as well. I'm just moving these out of the way a little bit. So we have get e source, and we can do a switch on that one. Hold control to reconnect all the pins at the same time. And again, backpack, player, equipment, shop, chest, crafting, storage, and delete the old node. So we are making some progress, and we are nearly done already. Isn't too long left. So we have one extra node which we can delete. Here we have another switch for the direction, so we're going to do the same thing again. Let's see what else. No, that's the only location, and that is for the selling. So if it's a shop, it sells over there, removes the money, does that logic. So we can get e direction, not the regular, get e direction, and a switch. Now let's reconnect the shop, chest, crafting. There we go. We can collapse that to hide some of the unnecessary ones. Hold control to reconnect these ones. So we can delete that, and have this one instead now. There we go. So I believe we are done with this function as well. Should be good to go. Here we go. So now again, back in our confirm by, we have these available, so that we need to provide these now. So we have the e source and the e direction as well. Nice. So that's that. So we are good with this one. Now let's go to our player slots, because that's a location where we need to provide these things. Or we also have the inventory panel still open, so let's do that in the inventory panel instead. So the first thing is our item data. So let's open that one up, and we're gonna do the player slots last then. And let's again, new variable, and this is the e source. Let's call this, let's grab the item location type, instance editable, exposed on spawn. And now to look for all the locations, I'm gonna right click the source, find references, and we're just going to double click those. So we have one over here. So I'm going to grab the source, check if it's equal to whatever we are checking for, the backpack. Okay, plug that in, remove the old one. Now we have the one for the usage, so we're going to need to replace that one as well. And then we have on drag detected. We can again right click, refresh the node, plug that in, delete the old source. And then we have another one on drop, which is this one. And from this one, we want to, from our operation, we want to get the source, plug that into both of the e sources. And for the directions, we want to go ahead and manually select, no, not manually. We want to grab this source that we have inside of here. So we want to plug that into the direction. So our e source now in this case will go to the direction, because this is the on drop. So this is where it needs to go to. So that is the direction. So these variables, these panels, these items location. So the e source goes into the e direction, and the source from drag and drop goes into the e source, like so. So everything else is good to go. And so this was the last one, the UI usage. So let's go ahead, let's change that one up as well while we are in here. So again, e source, item location, instance editable, exposed on spawn. And let's bring that in, and let's replace the switch. So we have a switch over here. So we can hold control, we have the player, and we have the backpack. And we can delete the old one and bring it in here. There we go. So now for the source, we are using it in the quick slots. So we might have to change that up there as well. So let's keep that in mind. Let's do that last. So now in the item data, in the usage, we can plug in the source like so. And now in our UI inventory panel, we can provide the source to the item data, to the actual icons. So you can plug that in, and we have another switch over here based on the position. So from the source, we do a switch, and we connect the shop value, and we remove the rest. And this goes to complete. And there we go. So we have another one created. So this is basically to create those empty slots inside of the shop. So this should, the next code should only work if the source is the shop, if we are in the shop right now. The last one is the player slots. So again, in the graph, new variable, I guess in this one we don't have the position variable, so then we don't need that. That means that only in the drag detected, we need to refresh the node and pass along that this is the player, just like we have for the tag. And then in the on drop, here we need to drag from the operation, get the source, and that goes into the e-source for the widgets, and the direction is the player, since we are dropping on top of a player slot. There we go. I have some print string over here, which is unnecessary. There we go. So we should be good to go, I believe. I think we have changed the majority of them that were necessary to be changed. So now we could try to hit play. Let's grab a backpack, interact with the chest. The chest does not get interacted with, and that is probably because if we select the chest, that is the crafting table, which is the chest. This is the chest. So we edit the chest, event graph, interact with. On start interaction, now we need to provide the source value, which is the chest now. There we go. So now we should be able to interact with the chest, and it should say chest at the top of it. For the shop, we need to do the same thing. So grab the shop, AI shop, look for the start interaction, where we are creating a widget, and provide the position of shop. There we go. So if you have any other, like I have the crafting table, that should be the source, should be the crafting. And then we also had those other interesting types of chests. So we have the loot chest. On start interaction, it has to have the chest variable, I would assume. There's a couple of those. We have a storage one, and this one should have the storage value instead of the chest. There we go. So I think now I changed all of them. So now if we interact with this one, that is a chest, that is that one, that is chest, that is shop, that is storage, and that is crafting. There we go. So all of those are correct. And we should be able to move the items back and forward as well, because we did change all of those things. If some of them don't work, that means that, well, in some of the locations, probably inside of the amount selection and the confirm by widgets, you have not passed along the source and directions correctly. And if that is the case, go ahead, make screenshots. If you can't find the problem, post them in the help section, and I'm gonna help you out finding these issues. So don't worry if you have problems like that. Just make sure you screenshot those locations, confirm by, amount selection, and preferably also the move item function as well. Well, at least these switches right here. I gotta see the switches. So that's that. Now let's try to get rid of those unnecessary things that we have. And one of those is, let's start off in the third person character. Let's go ahead, let's look for our create widget function, and let's simply remove the source value. So go ahead, click on the X. We have removed that. That means we can remove this thing right here, and we can remove this set widget position as well. So with that being done, that means that once we compile and save this, we get an error. Don't worry about that. Just go ahead and refresh all nodes. Doesn't seem to work. Then just hold Alt and click on these, on the red ones, and it's just gonna go away. As you can see, there we go. Just hold Alt and remove those. And we're gonna do the same thing for the refresh inventory widget. We're gonna remove this input, and we're gonna have some more issues over here. So let's go ahead and let's provide the new variables. So we have the widget position, which now we need the active widget instead. Plug that in, delete the old one. That one is gone. So just click on these errors and see what you have over there. So again, we have the inventory, which is the backpack. So we can just alt click and that one will be gone as well. So error crushed, good. Just go through now all of the widgets and recompile and save them real quick, just to make sure that there isn't any missing things, because we just deleted a couple. So there might be a couple of errors, like here in the confirm by. Again, delete this, good to go. Item data, UI usage, refresh widget. So there's going to be a couple of those with the refresh widget. We're going to need to remove the extra pin that it has, because it no longer has that. There we go. One over here, one over here in the, what is this, shop. The create widget, shop, delete that. Refresh widget. This one I missed. So that's good. Now it gave me an error. Now I know I have another refresh widget in here. Compile and save that. Delete this. And delete this. There we go. So that should be better. Now let's proceed. So we need a couple of more things removed like this. So what I'm gonna do is go back to the item data, and I'm just gonna simply delete the source variable. And actually, let's start with the usage instead. Let's delete the source variable. Delete that. I know it's in use. Thank you. I still want to delete that. Now, step higher is the item data. So remove that one and delete the variable completely. I know it's in use. Thank you. And the inventory panel. So this one can be deleted as well. Have a create widget issue. Okay, that's good. Now we see that. We have a shop. Delete that. And the last one would be the UI inventory itself. We have a bunch of these issues. So here is one, and here is one. Boom. So we have crashed them all. One thing, okay, so when we hit play, it gives us errors in these two. So just click one, click the other one, hit cancel. It's going to open up both of those at the very end. So as you can see, again, we have the refresh widget thingy. So what we want to do is, instead of the widget position, we want to get the active widget enumeration and plug that one in instead. And the same thing goes for the pickup, I would assume, on the refresh. That's right. We want to get active widget. There we go. So we have quite a lot of locations where we are refreshing the inventory. Let's see. So play again. Good. Pick up the backpack. Press I. There we go. Seems to be functioning. Let's try to sell something. It does ask the question. Drop it on top of the slot, my guy. There we go. That seems to be functioning. Yeah, let's drag onto the shop, onto the chest always, because the chest has the backpack, rather. It has the priority. There we go. So that is done as well. Let's see. So we have removed from all the widgets. All that stuff seems to be good. The last one left for us was the UI usage. So I'm gonna go ahead, close all those other things off. So we have the UI usage. Now for this one, we do need to change the quick slots type then, the variable. So we need to go to our inventory, I guess, structures, yep, as quick slots. And I'm going to change the item source. I'm going to just directly change the variables type to the item location. Save that. And now back in our UI usage, we will be able to provide that. So we can just go ahead and plug that in directly. There we go. It's going to provide the source. Now we're going to have a bunch of issues in our character, so we can hit compile, and it's going to give us a bunch of errors. And that is good because this will make our life a lot easier to spot and find these issues. So let's just click on the top one, which is the remove item function, which goes through the source locations and tries to remove items from the backpack and from the player slots. So again, instead of the switch string switch, we're going to do the enum switch. Hold Control and reconnect the execution. So inventory goes to the backpack, player goes to the player, delete the old one, move this one in instead. As simple as that. Let's click the next one, and as you can see over here, we have exactly the same issue. So you already know the drill. Let's move these out even more, because we will do some adjustments with these as well. And so instead of, let's start with the top, instead of string check, we're going to check if it's enum equal to a backpack enum. There we go. Delete the old one. And over here we have this one should be equal to the local source. So we're going to add a new variable, and let's call this e source. And let's check if that is equal to get e source. Does not allow me to get it. E source should have recompiled, and then reconnect the Boolean check and delete the old one, like so. Now compile that. Let's get to the next one. Get a copy. Again, same thing, the switch. So we add a switch from the enumeration inside of our use quick slots. So this is the player, this is the backpack. Delete the old one. Good to go. It's a little bit tedious. Obviously, like I said, it would have been better if I would have done this at the very beginning, but now you know where you have these things, and you could be able to apply the same thing for the types. But with the types, don't rush this too much. Well, depends, obviously. At some point I will have some different changes for the types as well, but that's gonna come in the future. Not exactly sure when. So if you need this like right now, then go ahead and do the adjustments now, because, well, we are going to change this into the enumeration. There's just going to be a possibility that items could have multiple types instead of one like we have right now. So again, make quick slots. So over here we have the inventory, so select the backpack and alt click, and then at the bottom we have the other one, which is the player. So select the player and alt click the item source. Good. There was one function though, which was remove quick slots, I believe, which is quick slot removal. So we have this one. We did add this pin, but we never did anything with it. So we're going to right click and we're going to find the references. We're going to double click those. So we have one over here, which is the quick slot removal. Source is the inventory. Source is the backpack. So that is correct. And we have another one over here. The source is the player. So that means that source over here also has to be the player. And the last one is the function itself. Okay, so it should be good to go. Again, a couple of errors. So just click on those. Hit cancel. It's going to open all of those up for you. Now let's see. So we have this one. Doesn't have an errors. Backpack also uses the quick slot, so we can check if this one enum is equal to the backpack. Bring this back. Bring it out. Delete the old one. Bring this one in. And another one over here. All this one needs is just the alt click, because we are inside of the backpack. Player preview. That's an interesting one. Okay, because that's the on drop one. So again, get source, plug that into the source, alt click for that one. Good. One more thing that I forgot is we can change these switches as well. So we could go ahead and change that switch from the source instead of the tag. So we can delete the tag completely and do a switch depending on the source. And we have the player, inventory. And delete the old one and bring this in. Here we go. So we can get rid of the tag completely. So I'm going to go back to the player slots as well, because the item data and all those. So next, UI quick slot. Again, check if this one is equal to empty. Okay, so by default it was empty. So we do need to change the default one. So since we know that the quick slots can only be used inside of the backpack and the player, I'm gonna just simply set it to storage. And now I gotta remember this. Or we can go ahead and add the new empty one. So we could go to the E item location, add a new one, and call this empty. Save that. And let's go back to our player preview, I guess, was it? No, quick slots. Yeah, UI quick slot, and change this to equal to empty. And there we go. Over here we have the source, which comes from the tag. Instead we want to use get source, plug that in, alt click, delete the tag, do a switch on the new source, hold control, reconnect, delete. There we go. So that's that got removed. And let's see, now whenever we remove the quick slots, we need to somehow set it back to be the empty one. So I would assume that now when we have the quick slots removal, when we are removing the slots over here, this one should be set to empty instead. That's right. So in the quick slot removal, when we reset the array element to be empty, index 0, we gotta set this to be empty. So now our quick slots will function as well. Now the last one is our quick slots panel, which has this guy. Oh, all it has is again a switch. So we're gonna replace the switch. So we have the empty, backpack, player, and the execution. Collapse this. Good. And like I said, the last locations, let's go ahead real quick, change the switches. So the item data, UI equipment slot, and the player slot. For all of those, on drop. Oh, we don't have a switch. That was back in the day. That's right. I'm already forgetting this code. That was back in the day. We had a switch over there. We no longer need that switch. But we have an error in our player slots. On the create widget, we have the source player. We want to plug in the eSource player as well for the usage. Now, real quick, let's remove the unnecessary things. Like on drop, we have the tag, so we can just completely delete the tag. And all of our on drops now, we can delete the tags. And let's go to our amount selection. And let's delete the source variable. Yes. Direction variable. Yes. Recompile that. And now in our confirm widget, same thing, delete the source and delete the direction variables. And the last one then would be our move item, inputs, delete the source, delete the direction, and delete those two local variables as well. And if you just delete them from here, they're not going to be deleted completely. So scroll down so you'll find the local variables and delete them from over here as well. So there we go. I think we have it all. Now, obviously, if you find any bugs, glitches, issues whatsoever, if something does not seem to function after this whole thing, then go ahead and let me know in the Discord. Have some screenshots just in case for maybe the errors, maybe where the error comes from. So like I showed you in the bottom, you saw me clicking on the error messages. There are those links which you can click and it's going to bring you right to the source of the problem. Okay, so we did just get one problem. once we bought an item, it instantly did this. There we go, a bunch of errors. So let's click on this, set location. Let's see, so we have the backpack. Oh, I would assume that that issue is because of the default value of the quick slots array. So in the third person character, just look for that. So we have the quick slots, and these ones will now have the backpack. So what I'm going to do is actually delete all of the elements, recompile this, and add 9 new elements. So that's what I had before. So I had those, and now if I do this, I think that's not gonna work. And that is because, actually, let's delete that once more, and back in our, let's find our structure as quick slots. Here we need to change the default value to empty. That's why I glitched out to the backpack. So we changed that to the empty one. We are all good with that. So now back in our third person character, we can add those elements. So we have 9 quick slots. 7, 8, 9. All are empty. Good. And now it should be good to go. So luckily I found that problem. There we go. That seems to be fine. That seems to be all good. There we go, no more errors. So yeah, hopefully that was it. If not, then like I said, let me know in the Discord and we're gonna figure that out. So yeah, anyway, thank you for watching. Hope you found something useful, learned something new. The enumerations are gonna be a lifesaver in the long run. But yeah, while you are learning, I think the strings are a little bit better because they force you to be more accurate and teaches you that you do need to provide the correct values and that things can be case sensitive. And if you type something wrong, well, then something's probably not going to work. With the enumeration, obviously, there's a lot less error possibilities because it removes the spelling and all that stuff. You can just select something from a drop-down menu. So yeah, thank you for watching, and yeah, see you in the next one.